My name is Christy, and I am a transformational macro coach. I help women over 40 lose weight, gain muscle, and have a better relationship with food. And I'm so excited to have a soulful conversation today with Pearl.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl Chiarenza, Women's Successful Living, and you're back for another episode of Soulful Self-Care Conversations, where we talk about everything self-care, the good, the bad, and the challenges that we come up with. And again, today, I have an amazing coach/speaker that's here to join us today, and her name is Christi Kelsey, and she is a certified transformational macro coach who helps women achieve body composition goals through balance, nutrition, mindset shifts, and sustainable habits. She is passionate about empowering women to eat more, fuel their bodies properly, and break free from the restrictive diet mindset. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today because there's so much around mindset, so much around dieting. And as somebody who used to be a yo-yo dieter and then went into the world of nutrition and, learning to have love with my body, it's always a journey and it's always a struggle, especially for women, I feel too. So Christy, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Pearl.
You're welcome. All right. So I know Christy told me before she came on, she snuck a peek at the episode. So she probably knows a little bit about what we're going to do. But if you're new to the show, I want you to make sure you like and subscribe below. If you have not invited somebody to come join and listen, grab a friend, share this link. And if you're listening to us while you're driving or somewhere's having a cup of tea, because I'm not a coffee drinker, but I still like if you drink coffee. I want you to sit back, grab a piece of paper, and take some notes. But if you can't, no worries, because everything will be in the show notes for you today. And so, Christy, I don't have any questions that I list out that I like to ask, except for one, and that is, I want to talk to the little girl, Christy. So can we do that for a few minutes?
Sure.
All right, awesome. So I want to ask little Christy, the inner child in all of us, and those that are listening, you have an inner child too. She's fill in your blank. She is your name, but just a few years younger. I would like you to introduce us to her. Tell us, what was she like growing up and what did she want to do, become as she became this amazing adult that she is today? And how does it correlate to what you're doing today?
Well, little Christy was a fun-loving, happy-go-lucky girl who just loved life, loved people, loved her family, and enjoyed living a carefree life. And she wanted nothing more than to be a mom. And uh, there have been parts of my journey that there was a question whether that would happen or not. So now that I am a mom and can say that I've checked that off my list, I am still that pretty much that carefree, happy-go-lucky, fun-seeking, fun-loving person that enjoys people, enjoys my family, and just loves to have a good time.
I love that. And I think I just learned something about you that we might have in common. So we're going to dig deep in that in just a second. But I love how you, took that moment to say, and you honored her and, recognize a fun loving. And it's interesting. You and I've talked before. And when you said fun loving, I'm like, I totally can see that because your spirit, you're outgoing, you're caring for others. I mean, we'll talk in a few minutes about the summit you're putting together because you want to help and pour into others. It shines through. So if you're listening to us, you've got to go back and watch the YouTube channel because you can see the beautiful smile that Christy has and was really, really shining as she was talking about that little girl, Christy. And it's always fun to go back and visit our inner child because depending on what our life was like, he or she may have gone through different, trials and tribulations in our lives, and how we come through those in our life is really what also makes up our story. And it's important to share our story. And I'm glad you're here today to share our story. For me, we have a little bit in common there. Growing up, I also thought I just want to be a mom. I want to have kids. I wasn't sure job wise what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher, but as I went through school and high school, I didn't get that opportunity to have that path towards teaching in school. But I feel today I am coaching, and after 10 years of trying to have children, we were blessed to adopt our oldest child through adoption, and we had our youngest child a few years later through infertility. So it was definitely a journey, excuse me, to becoming that mom and today. And like you, I feel like, I am happy-go-lucky. I love my family, but I've also learned to set boundaries around my family. And I've also learned that sometimes we have to divorce people in our lives and our family. And so I've had that journey as well. So the little girl in me that was probably in third grade, it showed up as a people pleaser. She didn't really heal from that until like 10 years ago. And so she carried that for a very long time. And once I was able to help release that from that little girl, Pearl, it's made a big difference in understanding that for me, no is a complete sentence, that I can learn to say no to others. So I say yes to myself, so that I don't show up just wearing titles. I show up because I love to wear that title around what I can do with my boundaries. So I love that you share that. Thanks for being vulnerable and doing that with us. I love that. So let's talk about like what led you to the journey of the health and nutrition. Like, was there something in your life that said, because I always say to my clients that I coach, and I coach at a nonprofit, I always share with everybody that we all have a story, and it's really impactful, excuse me, when you can share the story, when you can put that out to the world and share it, right? Because somebody else is going to walk a path, not exactly like yours, but it can empower and impact somebody's life. And so, was there a point in your life that you were like, I needed to make a change in my health?
Well, certainly, but my journey is all about my health. When I was 22 years old, I was a college student and newly married, and I had a sudden onset of joint pain all over my body. And my feet were particularly bad. My feet were so painful. My condition affected my joints as well as ligaments and tendons, and the plantar fascia in my feet were really inflamed, and my feet were just swollen. And I was the provider in our marriage. My husband was going to school full time. I was going part time and working part time, and we really depended on that paycheck. And I would, I suffered through that pain just to get through school and get through um, work and supporting us. My husband's long-term goal was that he wanted to go to medical school, and this pain was really bad, and there were days that I could hardly walk from my bed to the bathroom. It was so painful. And um I didn't know. I was so young and sort of naive, really, about what I could do about this. We were on a student healthcare plan, and, you know, not very many college students have rheumatological issues. And so this plan, we only had access to a rheumatologist once a month. And so it took several months to diagnose me with arthritis. And even with that, they couldn't narrow it down to what type of arthritis. And so thus started my journey on this path of, what's going on in my body. And I tried lots of medications, lots of different therapies. Once my husband got into medical school, we had better insurance, and I had better access to doctors. Um, but as painful as my joints felt, even more painful was that I wanted to have a baby, and I wasn't able to get pregnant on the medications that I was taking. And that just broke my heart. Just broke my heart because it was the thing I wanted most in my life. And year after year would pass, and I had no improvement in my condition. And about after 5 or 6 years, a doctor, you know, he was a rheumatologist and he just kind of threw his hands up in the air and said, I don't know what more to do with you. We've tried everything. And I'd tried physical therapy, I'd had injections in my feet, all different medications, um, orthotics, just everything you can think of. And he said, I don't know what else to do. I'm going to send you to this podiatrist and see if he has any ideas. And so I went to this podiatrist and he said, oh, I know exactly what this is. What you need to do is rub your feet in the morning before you get out of bed, and then rub your feet at night, last thing you do. And I just thought, oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way, after all that I've tried, there's no way this is the answer. But I was desperate and I was willing to try anything. So that night I started rubbing my feet. And then the next morning I rubbed my feet. And then I just started this pattern of rubbing my feet every night and every morning. And wouldn't you know, within a couple of weeks, my feet started to feel better. And once my feet started to feel better, all the joints in the rest of my body started to feel better. And I overall was better. And about a year later, was able to come off that medication and get pregnant. And once I got pregnant, I didn't have to take anything for my condition. It was like it went in remission. And we were thrilled, of course, to be expecting a baby. And when she came, I went into labor and I was in labor for like 23 hours. And something happened. We could smell a weird smell in our room. And so they moved us to another room. And I wasn't progressing very, very much. So they broke my water and gave me Pitocin. And all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. And I hit the call button and they came in and the doctor was practically on top of me and she said, your baby's heart rate has plummeted. We've got to get you into an emergency C-section right now. So they wheeled me off. The last look on my husband's face was just this sheer look of dread and like, I'm never going to see her again. And I had my baby. I woke up from the general anesthesia and she had a few complications, but nothing long term. And the doctor came in and she said, I don't know what happened. I thought you had an amniotic embolism, and that's fatal for the mother and the child. And I don't know how else to explain it. You shouldn't be alive right now. And so the other two babies I ended up having, I scheduled a C-section, and I didn't want to go through that and take that chance again. So I had these three beautiful children, and I loved being a mom. And then time passed, and about a week before my 40th birthday, I had had a simple procedure, and my doctor called and told me that I had endometrial cancer. And as scary as that sounds, I had this peaceful feeling come over me that was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I had a friend tell me, she said, Christy, just wrap it up in a bow and give it to God. And so that's what I did. And I just moved forward with this faith that everything was going to work out. And after the surgery, I had to have a hysterectomy. And after the surgery, a doctor came in and told me that I have no risk factors for endometrial cancer. And so it's probably um, a genetic diagnosis that I would have to go see almost every kind of cancer doctor for the rest of my life just to make sure I wasn't developing another kind of cancer. And so they proceeded to do some genetic testing on me. And I met with the geneticist, and she said, there, there's a battery of 15 tests for this syndrome. It's probably going to be one of the first three. And so we're going to just do three for right now because 99% chance it's going to be one of those three. Well, every one of them came back negative. And so they talked me into doing the other tests, the other 12 tests, and they were all negative. So they just kind of put it on the shelf and said, we'll keep following up with you. Like you do have this. It's called Lynch syndrome. And so I continued to follow up with my doctor. And then in 2020, we had the pandemic, and I could feel that there was something going on in my body. And I told my husband about it, and he's like, you need to go see somebody. But during the pandemic, I don't know if you remember, they're like, if you have these minor problems, don't go to the hospital, don't go see the doctors. We are treating COVID patients. And so I kept telling myself, I'm not one of these urgent people that needs to be seen right now. And I kept putting it off and putting it off. And finally, my husband called and made the appointment for me. He just said, "You have an appointment on this day with this surgeon. I want you to go see him." And um, so I did, and it turned out to be colon cancer, and that is a horrible surgery to recover from. And after I recovered, I had to do a colonoscopy, which is also a horrible procedure. And during the colonoscopy, they discovered they didn't get everything. So I had to go through it all again. And the night before my surgery, this almost overwhelming feeling came over me, and I just started to cry to my husband. And I said, my body has been through so much. It's been through so much in my life. And I'm not even that old. I was like 45 years old, and I'd had all of these health issues, and I just felt this overwhelming love for my body and all that it had been through and its ability to recover, heal, keep going. And I just thought, if I don't take care of this thing that I'm housed in, who else is going to do it? And so in that moment, I don't know that I realized it in the moment, but in that moment, my um my goals, my physical goals for myself of, you know, chasing that 20-year-old body or whatever, they changed from wanting to be skinny, chasing that young body who didn't serve me. I mean, I felt betrayed by my body in my 20s. Why am I chasing that still? You know, how that looked. I started chasing the body I wanted in my 50s and 60s and beyond. And I decided that body was going to be strong. That body was going to be capable. That body was going to be independent and able to live. And so that's really where things turned for me. And then a couple years later, I decided to become a nutrition coach. And I love helping women. I love helping women feel empowered by making choices that support their body. And what I would really love, like if I could wave a magic wand over all of the women on this planet, I would want them to feel that same love in that moment that I felt for my body and just this appreciation and no shame.
I have to tell you, like, I'm listening to you and I'm like, I'm sitting here with you right now and I'm hearing the passion and the love and and that I really feel like you were sprinkling that magic wand as you were sharing it because that's it's so important that we listen to our body, that we pay attention to the signs, and like you did all that. And like you said, at 20 years old, like you're like, I can imagine as a 20-year-old, going through that and something as simple as rubbing our feet. Like there's so many times like we go to like I know when I go to my doctor, I'm very much like I go with a plan. I have a conversation. I know every time I go in, this is what I'm expecting to discuss, and before we got in here, I was talking with you about health stuff and I went in and I had questions because I'd seen my test results. I had questions about some of the things and he reassured me. He's like, I knew you were, and he's gotten to know me now. And so if you're listening to us, it's really important to listen to your body as like what you're sharing. And this is, like you said, this is our temple. And when we listen and we pay attention, then we can start having a clearer feeling for what we need to do with our body. And as you were talking, it reminded me too of my story because I remember, as we were trying to have kids, I had 7 years in a row of fibro tumor surgeries. I kept having these fibro tumors coming up and couldn't figure out why. They didn't know what was going on. They couldn't find anything linked to what was happening, why it was causing it. I was pretty healthy and everything. And so I remember that, when we adopted our oldest son and then we went through in vitro and we had our youngest one. When I was pregnant with my youngest one, I had a fibroid tumor pop up as well. And so after I delivered, we had a conversation. I had to do C-section because of all the surgeries I had. And I remember, as you were talking about, I'm like, I can imagine what your husband was going through when you were in this labor and delivery with your child. But I remember like after I came out of that surgery, the first thing I said to my doctor was like, what are we going to do about these fibroid tumors? I now have these two beautiful babies that I fought for over 10 to 12 years to bring into our lives. I want to be here long term for them. What do we do? And she's like, well, we can do a partial. She didn't really do a complete hysterectomy with me. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we did. And then I think my youngest one was like in kindergarten. And I remember we were buying our house here in Florida. So I know he's in kindergarten. And so we were driving home and I was having this pain in my abdomen, and I was like, so my husband, my heart was bothering me too, and I do have a heart issue. But to my husband, you need to bring me to the doctor. So I wouldn't think it was my heart. The doctor came out and said, hey, you have a 16-centimeter long by 16-centimeter wide mass on your ovaries. I'm like, what the heck? It's like, I'm like, here we go again on fibroid. So my husband, again, my husband's like, I told him, I go, you don't need to come with me. It's another fibroid. I know the routine. By then I was like, okay, I know the routine. And I went in, and this is one of the first moments I'm like, I need to listen to my body. I need to question, right? And so when I went in, that doctor was trying to tell me I had, it's probably cancer. And so my husband wasn't there, and all my hair is C. And I had a friend of mine, Jim, who I worked with, and I called him right away. It's like, listen, if they haven't done the blood test, everything, you don't know until you know, right? It's like, okay. And I kind of have lived with that message. You don't know until you know. And so bottom line is I went to a doctor, went to a specialist. He's like, we're going to do a complete hysterectomy. And at the end, he came out and he's like, listen, I can tell you exactly why you had problems having kids. I can tell you exactly why you had these fibroid tumors. He's like, I put you in my books because I had endometriosis inside of my ovaries. He said, so nobody would have known that till you did the surgery. So that's why you had all these problems. And he goes, and good for you for like listening to your body and not like, I'm glad you didn't go down this. Because when I said, they told me cancer, he was like, I don't know who that is, but we're not going to go there. Right. So it was just like, and so at that point, from that point on, and my youngest is now 25, the last 25 years now, I'm like, I listen to my body. I don't assume anything yet. I go get my answers. And as I was listening to you and everything you went through, like what you said, like your husband making the appointment for you, because you were right, during COVID you couldn't get appointments, like, and I can get where you're coming from, because we do feel, especially as women, we put ourselves last.
Yeah.
We think, oh, it's not a big deal, we all those things. And I know, like, I think even like for heart disease with women, oftentimes women don't pay attention to science, so they don't go, and they're actually having a widowmaker in many times it's happening to them. And so I'm glad your husband's like, I'm making the appointment for you.
Yeah.
Sounds like my husband right now. I'm due to go do the colon test. He goes, you need to get that test done. I've done mine. I'm like, okay. So you just reminded me I got to do the test so I can get that off his plate, right, of worry. but I'm glad he did that, and I can see where like that's like that pivotal moment of saying I need to make a change. And so now you're doing this, and first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable with us. That's I always ask my listeners, I always ask my guests, for those that are listening, tell us your Shiro story. Like, what was that defining moment for you? And like that Shiro, and anybody who's new, Shiro means strong, happy, empowered, radiant, original. And so you came through this really strong like journey, and you came out stronger. And now you're on this path to help women, like you said, like change the mindset, and like understanding that, like you said, have to find balance in our nutrition. And I can see your passion. I mean, we talk about your passion about, you're definitely got the passion. So what I would love our listeners to know is like how are you helping your clients now? From your journey now, how are you transforming that into working with your clients?
Well, as I've been thinking about it, a lot of what I teach or, help my clients with are things that I've learned along the way. First of all, you can't control everything. There's very few things you can control. If you're getting on the scale and it's up and down, up and down, up and down, you can't control that. But you can control what you put in your mouth. You can control if you're eating enough protein or, drinking your water, um, going on walks, exercising. You can control those things. Those are choices that you make. You can't control the outcome. You can't control what the scale's going to do because of your actions. Um, and then just, other, like you can't control where the fat comes off your body. I mean, some people want it off of their midsection, let's say, and then the first place it comes off is their chest, which is the last place where they want it to come off. So, you have to shift that thinking and give up that idea that you're going to be able to control certain things. And then taking one step at a time, one small step at a time. I used to have this saying when I was in high school. My friend and I, back in the day when kids used lockers, we had this poster we put up in our lockers that we made ourselves that said, "It's one step at a time, not a whole staircase." And I've kind of lived my life like that, just take one small step. You don't have to incorporate everything all at once. In fact, that often rebounds and has the opposite effect. The second Friday in January is called Quitter's Day. That's the day that many people decide to give up their New Year's resolutions. Why? Because they take on too much all at once. And then they don't have a long-term plan. They don't have action steps. They just like, I'm going to do all this all at once. And then it's just too hard. It's too hard to change so much all at once. So just starting with simple habits and changing, once you get one habit down, then incorporate another habit. And when we've got those down and they feel like easy, then incorporate another one.
Yeah, and that's such a great reminder because we can't change everything overnight. I mean, these things we created didn't happen overnight. We don't have a magic wand that we can change everything overnight. The wand can be, what can I work on today? And that's the thing you work on. I know, like when I used to just concentrate on helping people with their weight loss program, they'd come in and they're like, the person I train under, I was so opposite of her because I wanted to work on the mindset. What was holding you back from making the choices that you want to change, and so that started creating people coming on my calendar because they'd go to her and she'd be like the principal's office. And for me, they're like, oh, the way you talk to me, the way you help me understand that, I chose that cupcake because it was more of an emotional thing, the reason behind it, instead of like, how can I work on the emotion that pops up? And, you're right. We can only change one thing at a time. It's like when I work on my clients with, our say yes to I call it our Keep It Simple Shiro program. But when we work on that, it's like, we have to start small. Like, where's the biggest area that you're struggling with? And let's work there and start small. It's like, I remember, like you can't change a habit overnight. It's just like with eating. Like if somebody's not on the best healthy journey, telling them to 5 days or 7 days a week, you got to eat this way, they're going to fail. But if they can change one thing and start on that one thing, what's the most important thing, then it can lead to the next thing. And like you said, like start small so that you have the longevity. One of the other things too I used to do as well, because the program I coached with was a very strict program. It was no fats, no fruit, no carbohydrates. And so as they were reintroducing that to them, like again with the other person, that she'd be like, oh, you can incorporate all of them. And I'm like, well, we've taken them all out. So we need to introduce them like one at a time. We can't just like go, because then you're going to end up, falling backwards. So I would have what I used to call, okay, you're going to pick one day a week that we're going to call your safe day. So for me, safe day, and to this day, is still every Sunday. And so for our family, it was like every Sunday was a safe day, and everybody in the family got their safe day. So if it was my safe day, I got to pick one meal a day that I wanted to have that was, I call it the fun meal. Maybe I wanted to have Alfredo chicken or something, like I would have something like that. But then I learned how to make it healthier. I learned how to make it, like with what do you call it, cauliflower and things like that, so cauliflower mac and cheese instead of mac and cheese and things like that. And so I started creating that, and it just has played out in my life to this day as well. It's like, as I create those habits, if I allow myself the safe day, I don't feel like I'm missing anything, but I can be like, it's like that reward I've done, through this week. And like you said, starting small is so important. And I know you have something that you, when your clients, you have something coming up. I know that I'm speaking at it as well. You want to tell everybody how, like, what I'd love to know is tell everybody what's some of the ways they can reach out to you to work with you to start this journey? Because, I feeling overwhelmed and listening to us, we're like, well, I need to start somewhere. Is how can they reach out to you to start this journey and start making and having a communication with their body?
Yeah. Um, I am definitely taking clients. Monday, the 28th of April, my 14-day Fat Loss Over 40 Summit starts. And it's a free 2-week summit. We have 2 speakers every day. And we have topics like emotional eating, mindset, metabolism, menopause, weightlifting, just all kinds. And it's free. So you're welcome to join up at christycountsmacros.com. And that's Christy with a CH and an I. I'm sure we'll have it in your show notes.
Yeah, we'll definitely have it in our show notes, christycountsmacros.com. And so Christy, like what are they, how can they reach you like on social media and stuff as well?
Yes, I'm at on Instagram at Christy Counts Macros. So, and if you want to send me an email, it's Christy at christycountsmacros.com. It's all Christy Counts Macros.
Yay. We got a few more minutes. So what's one area, if you were to think of an area that somebody could start something today. So they're listening to us and like, I just want to make one change right now. Like, what's one simple change? If you had somebody that's coming in and said, that's listening to us right now, what's one change you would suggest to start on that journey to become healthier?
Add protein to what you're already eating. Many, many, many women don't eat nearly enough protein. And as we get older, we actually need more because our bodies become less efficient at using protein. And that's what it uses to build and repair our muscles. And as we age, our muscles actually shrink. It's called sarcopenia. And if we're not getting enough protein, that process goes much quicker. And we need that lean muscle mass. That lean muscle mass is the biggest impact on our metabolism.
I think that, I mean, I love that reminder too, because oftentimes we don't add the protein. So no matter what I eat, I try to always make sure it's got some sort of protein in it as well, because it's really, really important. And then even like if I'm going to have a busy day, like I'm going to be out running around everything, I have one of my favorite protein drinks. I always make sure I've got that with me so I can like add it to water or something like that, so I'm not missing that mark. So that's a great reminder. It's like eat lots of protein. It's really, really important as well. So how old are your kids? And you didn't tell us, you have boys, girls?
Yes, my oldest is a girl and she's 21. And I have a 19-year-old son and a 16-year-old son. So I have one left at home.
So they grow so fast, right? They move on.
Do. I know. I talk about them being kids like it was just yesterday and now I just have one at home and he'll be a senior next year.
I do
So
the
it's
same
gone by
thing.
really fast.
Yeah. So, speaking of our kids, you're right, because we still talk to them like they're, like the little ones. So, how did your kids buy into what you do? Like, did they kind of follow along with some of the things you do? Did you find any struggles?
Um, as far as nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, they've totally used what I've taught them. My daughter got into weightlifting during the pandemic. And so she's trying to build muscle. And so I taught her about macros and I would help her um, I would prepare meals that supported that and help her think of ideas for lunches and stuff that she could use that were higher in protein. And then my middle child, he got into weightlifting and he used to do meal prep every Sunday when he was in high school. He would prep his meals that he was going to take to school and they'd have like chicken and rice and vegetables and so he was eating really healthy as a junior and senior in high school. And then my youngest son is an athlete. He plays basketball. So he's had sort of the kind of the opposite issue most people have. He's had a hard time getting enough calories. And so we've actually used the macronutrients to help him keep up with that.
That's so cool. I love when our kids kind of fall on that step and they see the things that we do and they start emulating. And it's what I teach and coach my clients on. It's like if you have littles at home, they're going to emulate what you do. So if you create those good habits, they're going to learn the good habits. If you involve them in decision makings and things around the house that they can help you with, they're going to become, better at those things as well and be very independent. So I love that you share that with us. Okay, so my last question before we go to our cards is, what's your favorite thing you like to do for self-care?
Oh, wow. I I have implemented something that I just love, and that is that I go about once every 6 weeks to get a facial.
I just started incorporating that. I would go like every couple months, like probably once a quarter, once every 6 months. But now I just started incorporating. I just went and had my first one in a while. I had a hydrofacial. It was the most amazing thing ever. And then it was funny. She's like, "I'm gonna put this mask on you. It's gonna be a jelly mask." I'm like, "Do I get to pick the flavor?" And she just started laughing at me. She goes, "If you could pick a flavor, what would it be?" I'm like, "Strawberry." She goes, "Well, you don't get to pick the flavor, but I'll remember that for next time." So I just love that. So that's so cool. Well, I want to thank you for being on today. I want to thank you for sharing your story. I want to thank you for letting me be on your summit as well. And looking forward to getting that out to everybody. And we'll definitely be sharing clips from this so everybody can get involved in the summit. In the meantime, before we let you go, as you know, you watch the show, we have our cards, our Better Question, Better Life cards. So I'm going to shuffle those and you're going to tell me when to stop. We're going to have you answer the cards. So here we go.
Stop.
All right. Oh, your card says, "What brings me bliss?" What brings you bliss?
Oh, I love a picnic. I love packing up a lunch and just going for a hike somewhere and either sitting on the ground or at a picnic table. That brings me a lot of joy.
I love that. That's so cool. I love a good picnic. It's something I use that kind of picture with some of my clients. I'll talk to them about. I want you to think about a goal that you want to achieve. We always think that we have this big goal we want to achieve and we want to go after, right? And we think we get to the top of the hill, we think we have to roll down the hill and then things fall apart. Like, no, let's go on a picnic journey. So imagine going on a road trip and there's a scenic route that's right there, and you pull up the side of the mountain, you open up, you have a picnic lunch, and I tell them like, leave behind the trash can because we don't leave trash. The things that no longer serve you, the things that are weighing heavy on your heart. So I tell them to empty it from the picnic basket, throw it away when they're done with it, and then go up. And then when you get to the top, like do the same thing. Look back and say, what served me at the top to the top of the hill, what didn't, and let that go in the trash can. And then as you come down, think about the next goal, but don't just roll down to the goal. Like stop on the way down again, have another picnic lunch, and think about what do I want to do next? How's that look? Who do I need to help me uplift me there? And then you go up to the next goal. So I love that you said that because it just reminded me of that story I share with everybody, and I think that's so So powerful. So I want to thank you again for joining us. And before we let everybody go, I want to remind everybody that we come into this world, we are this tough oyster of a shell that we have to break through and open up. We have to find and communicate that with our body and get to know ourselves, as we've been talking today. And so when you do, you find your own inner pearl to becoming the hero that you are today. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I hope you go out, find your inner pearl of greatness. Make sure you like and follow us below, and click the link in the comments if you want to get a free Say Yes to You call with me. Have a great day. I had so much fun, you guys, with Christi. That was such a blast. I loved her story. Her story is so powerful, and what she went through, like getting to communicate with her body. And as she said, like really having the relationship we have with our body is so important. And so I'm going to give you that challenge. I'm going to give you that homework. When was the last time you did a audit of your body, a body scan check? If you haven't like checked in with how are you feeling, where are you at in your goals, whether it's health or wellness, wherever that is, and where are you not listening, or maybe the body's trying to tell you something, you're not paying attention. If you're having any of that today, I'm going to encourage you to reach out and get help in those areas. If you want to learn more, of course, reach out to Christi. But I also want to get you started on those goals. So if you want a roadmap to help you join us today and on that journey, I would love to have you join us. So just click the link down in the bio and let's get you started for a free call. Hope you have a great day and go be the amazing Shiro you are.
Why'd it take so long?